You remember being a teenager. The confusion, the need to be seen, the feeling that your body belonged to someone else, that the rules made no sense, that you were becoming something but didn't know what. You thought that experience was just part of growing up, something universal, something human. But that's not quite right. The teenager, as a category of person, as a stage of life with its own rituals and identity in crisis, is almost entirely a modern invention. And what your ancestors went through during those same years of biological change looked nothing like what you experienced. We assume adolescence has always existed because the body has always changed at puberty. And that part is true. The hormones, the growth, the neural rewiring, that is ancient. But here's what's fascinating. For most of human history, the years between childhood and adulthood were not a waiting room. They were not a period of searching. They were a door. And the moment you walked through it, you were already on the other side. In 2014, anthropologist David Lancy at Utah State University published a comprehensive study of childhood across pre-industrial and hunter-gatherer societies. His findings were precise. In the vast majority of cultures studied, there was no extended adolescent phase. Children watched adults work. Then, somewhere between age 10 and 14, they began doing that work, not as apprentices, but as contributors. Not in theory. In practice, measured across dozens of cultures on multiple continents. Which means your body's transition was never supposed to be a psychological crisis. It was supposed to be an entry. You were supposed to be given a role the moment your body was ready to hold one. But that's only half the story. Now here's where it gets strange. Many ancient cultures didn't just absorb young people quietly into adult life. They marked the transition with rituals, deliberate, often painful, always public. The specifics varied enormously, but the structure was almost always the same: separation, ordeal, return. In 2000, anthropologist David Gilmore at Stony Brook University documented these initiation structures across cultures in his research on manhood and identity. What he found was that the rituals were never really about pain or endurance. They were about social death and rebirth. You left as one thing. You returned as another. And everyone around you treated you differently because of it. Your ancestors didn't spend years figuring out who they were. The community decided for them, in a single ceremony, and then held them to it. The identity was not discovered. It was assigned. And the clarity that followed, however rigid, was not nothing. And here's the part nobody talks about. Modern neuroscience now tells us that the adolescent brain is genuinely different, not broken, not incomplete, but structurally wired for risk, novelty, and social belonging. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that manages long-term consequence, doesn't fully mature until your mid-20s. This was documented extensively by neuroscientist Sarah-Jayne Blakemore at University College London, whose work through the 2010s showed that teenage social pain, rejection, humiliation, exclusion, registers in the brain with the same intensity as physical pain. Your ancestors' rituals may have understood this without knowing the biology. The ordeal, the belonging, the public affirmation of new identity. All of it targeted exactly what the adolescent brain needs most: a clear role, a community, and a moment that says, you are no longer what you were. We removed the ritual. We kept the neurology. And that changes everything we think we know about why adolescence feels so hard today. It is not that young people are weaker, or more confused, or more self-absorbed than they used to be. It is that we ask them to construct an identity from scratch, inside a system that gives them no ceremony, no clear role, and no public moment of arrival. The brain is still waiting for the ritual, and the ritual never comes. We kept the biological transition. We discarded the social architecture built around it. You remember being a teenager. That feeling of not yet being anything. The hunger to be seen and named and placed somewhere. That feeling was not weakness. It was your brain, doing exactly what it was built to do, searching for a signal that used to exist. A community, a ceremony, a moment where someone older looked at you and said, you are now one of us. Your ancestors had that moment. Most of us never did. And we are still, in some quiet part of ourselves, waiting for it.